Hello, everybody, and welcome again to another episode of Renewal and Innovation. The question of today's webinar is, whom does it serve? My name is Thomas Wittig, and I will be happy to lead you through the session today. Talking about serving. Again, I will be giving a few examples from the work with family and systemic constellations, with families, individuals, and specifically also organizations. And as I mentioned, this is part 3 of the series. If you haven't watched them, part 2 and 1 are also available already on the YouTube channel and in various other ways. So if you signed up for the webinar, you will automatically receive a link to the replay. And as always, it will be great if you could like, rate, share, and comment and spread the word. Okay, so whom does it serve? To revisit again the key topics from the previous talks, I want to go back to something I said at the kickoff webinar. We always have to take a look at the entire system that we are considering here. So in the example of an organization, for example, it's not only the person with the issue that is coming forward and has a question that we are looking at with systemic constellations, but there are many other players and stakeholders and members of the system, of course. And consider, for example, if you are in a certain job role in an organization, there are many more people that belong to you and you are connected with. For example, the other employees, the clients, the investors, especially important if you are in, for example, a leadership position. And of course, the founders, but also impacted people who have been impacted by the organization or by products and services of the organization, impacted in a favorable way. And oftentimes we also see that those who were impacted in an unfavorable way are in resonance with the organization in a certain way. So it is important to keep this entire perspective and to open our view to the entire system, but only to those who really belong to the system. It's not everybody on the planet and Earth. Theoretically, of course, we are all connected, but when we are doing the family constellation work, we are only considering those who really are a part of the system under consideration. And of course, there's a time dimension to everything. We have to consider the current and the former members of any system. So, for example, in the case of a family, it's the current family or the current partnership we live in, and also the so-called family of origin, which also has a connection to the members of the family. And likewise, when people come together in an organization and in the workplace, and that's especially true actually also in small organizations or in family-owned business, then all of our current and former connections in the family space also come into fruition, of course, in the interaction and in the relationship of an organization. And that's something we have to keep in mind. So, for example, when I'm speaking to a colleague, I can see behind her or behind him his parents or her parents, the grandparents, and everybody that belongs to them. And that opens up our view and our awareness for our people in the organization. And we talked about the 3 essential questions. The starting point was what is the topic? And what is it really about, and what is the key issue? That was a key consideration, of course. We also talked about who belongs to the system, but the question today is about whom does it serve? Well, specifically, when we are talking about an innovation or a renewal initiative in an organization, That is a key question. Of course, we can ask the same question in the context of a family or a relationship, whatever kind. But if we focus, for example, right now on the topic of organizational constellation, this is probably the single most important question when it comes to renewal. And I will explain that a little bit more as we go along today. So the key question here to ask specifically under this guiding light is, does the innovation serve a worthwhile purpose? That is an important consideration because any initiative, any innovation, or any new product, any new reorganization which doesn't serve a worthwhile or favorable purpose, it cannot be sustained. So sooner or later it will vanish and it will not be able to sustain itself. Secondly, the key question is, does it serve many or only few, or maybe only one person? That is also a sign oftentimes that an innovation cannot be carried on. And the third question one needs to keep in mind is it a gamble? Does it gamble with the belonging to the group and what is at stake? For example, if we are going down the path of a new initiative, a new venture, a new proposal, a new project, or we're putting our life energy and money behind it, even our investors' money or the founders' money, then we need to ask the question, is it a gamble, and is it something that we want to take the responsibility for, also for the entire organization? And oftentimes it is the case, if such a gamble doesn't turn out so well, then the sense of belonging and the connectedness to the organization is under question as well. So this is the areas, and as you can see from this circle, it's just a way of illustrating the topics here. They are all connected, and the question with whom does it serve is always in the context of the purpose and the topic. So we need to ask about the purpose of the innovation and the renewal, the act of renewal, and also it is centered in the entire system. So we have to consider the sense of belonging and ownership to a certain group and organization. If it is not rooted in this context, then we have a very high chance that the innovation and the renewal cannot succeed. But the key challenge, of course, is that any renewal movement and any innovative movement works against a decay which comes over time. Nothing lasts forever, and not only bricks and mortar and buildings or other products decay over time, but also entire organizations and the relationship between the people can decay over time. And we often hear when people come forward in organizational constellation that they use these words like, our organization has lost its path or has lost its spirit or even its soul. And that is typically a sign that the decay was much stronger than the forces of renewal and innovation. And so the question is always, how can renewal succeed? This can be illustrated by this documentation I took from a family constellation, when a leader in an organization wanted to go above and beyond. And we always have to keep in mind that any change or any innovation can also introduce a sense of anxiety to a group or an organization. So that is a key force that everybody in the leadership position especially will experience. And in this particular case, some representatives were trying to hold the person back because they did not believe and they were not taken by the movement of innovation, and they were actually scared that the next step outside their circle into a very new territory could lead to a big disaster. So that is in the context of family constellation, oftentimes a sign where we have to really ask, can this innovation succeed, or is there maybe a better way, or is it not even a waste of time, but also a danger for the entire organization and the stakeholders. And here's another example from a constellation. I call this chasing the pink unicorn. The unicorn as a symbol of some really grand, crazy idea that some innovator or an entrepreneur is pursuing. We often hear the term unicorn, of course, in the world of startups, where the whole team and founders and entrepreneurs are chasing after really big success stories. But there are only few of these so-called unicorns who actually make it. I think the formal definition of a unicorn would be a company with a valuation of over $1 billion, for example. But of course, one can imagine that this cannot be created overnight. And in this particular situation, in the systemic constellation, the stakeholders actually turned away because they didn't believe in it. But the founder was still so much in love with his pink unicorn, he didn't even recognize that he was left alone. And you know, what fun is it to be a leader if you don't have any followers? Then even a pink unicorn is not so exciting anymore. And that was a key topic in this constellation, and it gave important insights about how to resolve the situation for this team and for this leadership situation. The leadership in terms of innovation always comes with a certain dilemma for the relationships and partnerships. As I mentioned before, one is that the decay and also complacency of an organization is working against the development and against the growth, the movement towards more. So that is holding back, of course. And the question is, how can we overcome this in a good way so that it resonates with everybody in the system, of course. Secondly, in order to survive for any organization, the relationships have to be not only maintained, but renewed, because they are also subject to decay. And the question is there, how can we renew the relationships and the love between the people in the organization, the love in terms of a very positive energy between people. And then, of course, to grow and pursue the own path, sometimes one needs to step outside of the boundaries. This is a topic which I'm planning to talk a little bit more about in detail, because I think it's a key ingredient of actually searching for a true innovation and not only renewal. A renewal is basically characterizing that we are working on replenishing something which is, for example, fading away or decaying over time. But a real innovation is something that hasn't been there before. And that sometimes requests from both the people and especially from the leaders in an organization to step above and beyond and step outside the boundaries and outside a known circle in which the order still hold true and all the laws of the working together and being successful work. And sometimes if we work outside of these boundaries, what we have become to know and experience doesn't work anymore. And that is one reason why it creates such a sense of anxiety and distress sometimes for the organization. So the question always is for a leader how to go about it, and first and foremost to find out if an intended innovation can actually succeed or not. And here the family constellations and the systemic constellations can provide really interesting insights and sometimes counterintuitive insights or not so obvious insights. Yeah. The key question then always is, can it succeed? Can it work out what we have in mind? Is it a good idea to go forward with it, or does it do more harm than good to the organization and the customers? And I would like to give a couple more examples from the work in the field. Oftentimes what I'm doing when I'm working with a group of people or with leaders or policymakers in international organization is we just take the issue and we take a representative for the innovation that is about to happen, or that was planned or intended, or let's say a great idea that is coming about. And here characterized by the person in the yellow dress. And oftentimes, and always, we have to choose somebody representing the organization. Here it's characterized by the female person there on the right-hand side with the white suit. And in this particular case, the constituency is actually turning away, and that is usually an important sign and a signal that is surfacing out of the constellation. And the people who are representing these stakeholders or the constituents oftentimes have no background about what is happening. But often what we hear from the participants who bring forward such an issue, they say, well, that's exactly what I'm sensing in the organization, but I had no idea what is really behind it, what is the entanglement behind it, and even less I had an idea how to resolve it. So here we can work with the procedure of constellations in order to bring that to the surface. And oftentimes when we bring the issue and the entanglement to the surface, then the solution becomes obvious, or we get a first indication of how it could go forward, or if it doesn't work out, which also happens sometimes here, for example, in this case, we see that with the movement of the people who are moving in this knowing field, in this morphogenetic field, if you want, then we can observe if something is working out or not. And then what good would it be in order to force that upon an organization? For the leader, it is not something that you can run with for a long time, because sooner or later the reality will catch up with you. And for the organization, it's also not so pleasant if something is being forced upon the organization, which is actually not part of the shared belief system, or doesn't resonate with the organization. And people feel that it could be wrong. For example, it could violate the relationship to customers or to former stakeholders or the founders of an organization. And these have to be observed. It's a very complex situation. And that's why I believe the work of systemic constellation in combination with an organization and organizational change and complexities can really provide very interesting insights, which we cannot obtain otherwise, oftentimes also not with the rational mind approaches that we can bring to bear. But when we can see when something is going forward, when people are turning towards each other, and especially when the representative for the company or the organization is actually engaging in this movement. The movement always has to be without any intentions or without any preconceived notions, and without any wanting to help. And that is probably the most difficult part, both for the representatives, but especially also for the facilitation leader who is facilitating the systemic constellation work. Oftentimes what I see is that people have, let's say, they know too much from their previous experience, and they have quote unquote good intentions, but this is rarely helpful. It is much better to stay with a little bit of a distance to the issue and let it unfold, because this is not about helping in a directive way or an intentional way. It is more about experiences the inherent dynamics of a system, and then coming to the conclusion how to move forward, if to move forward and how to move forward with a given movement of innovation, for example. And so we can ask this question, does the innovation that we have intended or envisioned for an organization, does it not only work out, but does it stand in the service for life, and does it serve life in a broader sense? If we can work with this image, and if we find the answer to that, that is usually giving us a good light, a guiding light for the innovation moving forward. So I would like to recap from what we have discussed so far, so a couple of insights. The question of serving is probably the single most important question when it comes to constellations in the context of innovation and renewal. I have seen that many times, and I see it again and again, especially also in the area of startups, for example, and startup innovation. Oftentimes there are great ideas, and obviously right now is a time of great change in terms of technology, science, but also in the society. And there's so many great ideas and great motivated teams, but not everything that we can do is actually serving really a favorable purpose. So we have to keep that in mind, that this is the key question. And we have to see that always in the context of the entire system. And here for example, a way to move forward is with what I call decision constellations, or also a transformative constellation. And here again, we have to be careful a little bit, because I always am a little bit wary of the term transformation, because it implies already an intention. But as we are working in the field of system constellations, we have to step back and really observe that we cannot work here with intentions. Otherwise, it's not going to work out in the long run. For those of us who are innovators or helping people in terms of innovation, for example, as advisors and helpers, I would like to say that the innovation is probably one of the 2 or 3 most important leadership jobs that I have seen in organizations. And the question of the new leadership in terms of sustainability also requires a new mindset and a new mental model, but also a new form of leadership in terms of understanding and experience systems and being a systemic leader. Some of the guiding questions that I would like to provide here is, which could be helpful actually even without doing a formal constellation, is first, does the innovation serve anybody at all? So that is a key question. And then from there, go and ask yourself, is it serving only one, a few, or many? And if I'm the one who is driving the innovation or the inventor, I need to really ask myself, is it really serving anybody else but me? And if the answer is no to that, then I can say you can probably already forget it right from the beginning. Then the next question is, what are the side effects? And does it cause any quote-unquote collateral damage? If somebody is being hurt by an innovation, or it's not doing good but doing harm to some people, then this is of course a very questionable act of innovation, and we need to be very careful with that. And then the final question is, what is the nature of innovation? And we should here distinguish between something that is renewing what is already there, which is a different way of working, and the other version is it a step into a new territory or a whole new chapter? And this applies also not only to innovation in the organization context, but also to personal decisions or professional career decisions. And here the questions of innovation equally apply to the way moving forward. So we can take a look at that from different perspectives. And oftentimes the questions always hang together, that let's say an organization which is contemplating about an innovation always looks at somebody from the outside to bring that person in and drive a certain change. And that makes it even more complex, because here we have different dynamics and different dimensions overlapping in this whole scenario. And likewise, if I imagine myself and going into a new direction, I can also ask myself exactly these questions, and then I will come to potentially different answers than if I only ask, okay, what is in it for me, and is it a good move also from a financial or monetary perspective, or is it a good move to relocate to another geography? I think these are almost secondary questions. If you look at it this way, you come to maybe different answers for yourself and for your constituencies, for your stakeholders and your family, for example. Before I go into the Q&A, and I'm again looking forward to answering some live questions, I would like to point you again to a little bit of related material. Of course, you can find blog articles and free videos, etc., on the website and on the YouTube channel. And also there's sometimes a discussion on Facebook. So make sure to check in. But there's also a resource which I call the 3 essential meditations, which are building on the 3 essential questions and provide a different perspective on the issue. And I have prepared these guided meditations, which you can actually use for yourself in certain time intervals to look at a situation from these 3 different perspectives. So I would encourage you to do that. I believe actually here in the live webinar, we have a special going on here today. So make sure you take advantage of that. And as I mentioned, there's the free YouTube channel. So make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. It's free. And of course, the mailing list, which is informing about new and upcoming webinars. If you would like to suggest a topic or a seminar location, please send email to this email address, constellations@wittigonia.net, and be happy to consider new sessions, new groups, but also new locations, and always grateful if people come forward and would like to host or co-host such a session. There are several planned right now for the foreseeable future, and this summer there will be also an opportunity to do some more sessions in other geographies, which I will announce shortly. Before I take a couple of questions which were submitted prior to the webinar in the sign-up form, and also usually some live questions come in, I would like to mention that you're welcome to submit questions between the webinars on this particular Facebook page, which is called Constellateur, so easy to remember. Okay, so that was it for the introduction part today, and now I'm looking forward to take on a couple of questions here. And let me see what was coming in recently. We have some questions which were submitted beforehand, and I will take these first. So if you have a question you would like to answer, please just type it into the question box and I will pick it up here. So one question which is often coming is about cultural differences. And here again, a participant asked beforehand, how can I work with this in, let's say, international organizations where I have so many people from different walks of life, from different cultural backgrounds and different geographies? The answer to that is the approach works in all different settings. And based on my own personal experience, I think this is actually a great way. And what you will find is that the work in this area and the work with the more soul-related things doesn't differentiate between geographies or backgrounds, etc. So the soul moves in different ways and in different, let's say in similar ways, in similar directions. So you don't need to be afraid of that. What I would say, though, is that, of course, we would like to respect, and we do respect cultural differences, of course, in the way people just simply communicate with each other. But what is surprisingly, when we do systemic constellation, particularly with the new approach and the new way of working, which is even much less directive, we find that people understand each other and find a common ground often without even communicating. So it goes into a very different dimension above and beyond the means of communication. So I would encourage you to explore that even more. And if you would like to be part of an international or cross-cultural constellation, please feel free to join us in one of the seminars that we are offering. Okay, so there was another question which was sent beforehand, and that was about a family business. And the question there was, we are bringing in a new successor in our family business. I have watched the previous webinar, and I would be interested in how to approach that from the perspective of family constellation. A good question. It's a far-reaching question, actually. One always has to take a look at the specific situation. There is no, let's say, general recipe for doing this. I have given some indications in the previous webinars about transition and succession, or succession planning, if you want. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. But what is always important is, if you have a situation which is rather complex, then I would encourage you to do a systemic constellation and look at it from different perspectives. And hopefully you can do it also in a way where you have representatives taking the role of the different stakeholders in the system that is under consideration. It will give you really important insights about this. It is also important for let's say the person who is handing over and the person who is maybe taking over, and that could be somebody from the outside, an external person, to really experience, hopefully also beforehand, if this is a good fit for everybody. Because sometimes it turns out that what people had in mind in terms of great ideas and great intentions and good intentions, so-called good intentions, doesn't work out for everybody. And sometimes the organization is then going into a crisis and a turmoil. And that's not a so pleasant starting point for many people in the organization. So I would encourage you to, again, work with somebody or join us for a seminar, for example, where we can take a look at these questions. Here's another one from a previous participant who said, I listened to the podcast. It's actually not a podcast, it's a webinar if you want. But I listened to the podcast and I applied some principles, and it drove some key insights for our organization. We're actually thinking about a reorganization coming out of this. So, well, congratulations, I would say. If it was helpful, I'm glad to hear that. And yes, it's true that sometimes the innovation that we had in mind may be the love on first sight, so to speak. But sometimes something new is coming out of it. A new idea, a better idea. And that is often the case when we do this kind of work, that it's not the best first idea that is coming to fruition, but sometimes it's love on second sight. So that resonates even better for an organization. Okay, so I think that was it for today. We don't have so many live questions today. Then I will probably close the webinar for today. And I would like to thank everybody for the participation. and looking forward to hearing from you. And also some of you I will see in the upcoming Constellation seminars that we have announced. Again, please feel free to nominate a topic, which I'll be happy to pick up. And there will be a few more sessions announced shortly, and some of them are already announced on the website. So again, I'm looking forward to welcoming you for the future sessions. And until then, I wish you all the best and good luck with your renewal, innovation, and everything that you have in mind. So be well and good luck. Bye-bye.